Hopefully y'all can see that. Got the presentation up? Okay, excellent. And I'll share the full screen. So thanks everybody for joining. My name is Salem Bush. I'm joined here by Corinne Babek. We are from the Department of Planning and Development, and we are working on an update to the policy plan, what we call the policy plan here at Fairfax County. And specifically tonight, we're going to focus on the introduction chapter of that. But in the meantime, we will, before we get into that, we'll go over just some kind of overall comprehensive planning before we actually get into the introduction chapter. So with that, the agenda, again, we'll talk about the purpose of the comprehensive plan, project timeline, the introduction and draft goals, which is kind of the subject of the meeting tonight. And we'll have some time for questions and discussion, and we do have some contact information at the end as well. So again, this was authorized by the board, and as directed by the board, the goals of the complete policy plan update are to review, update, and streamline the existing policy plan elements, add in new policy plan elements as needed, and ensure the policy plan is in alignment with the countywide strategic plan, the One Fairfax policy, and other recently adopted policies and initiatives. And so there's a couple of phases. This is a pretty big overhaul for our department in terms of the update. We have a number of policy plan elements, so we have two phases. The first phase, again, we're calling it the introduction chapter, but it's currently referenced as the preface, the land use element, transportation, environment, parks and recreation, equity, community health, and human services. So those are the first phase. And then the second phase, we'll get into updating the housing element, economic development, heritage resources, the revitalization of visual and performing arts elements. And this is countywide. And so again, really the purpose of the comprehensive plan and kind of how it works, this is kind of a top-down. We've got the comprehensive policy plan, so that provides countywide guidance on land use vision along with goals, objectives, and policies to achieve the vision. And that's what this authorization is for us to update that policy plan. And then you also have another separate part of the comprehensive plan is the plan area volumes, and those provide specific guidance and considerations to ensure compatible development within an identified area. And then, of course, we have the zoning ordinance that regulates land use and implements comprehensive plan for the orderly and controlled development of the county, and then the public facilities manual. And so we're not looking at the area plans, we're not looking at the zoning ordinance with this, we're not looking at the public facilities manual, we're really focused on the policy plan. And so everything kind of works its way down from policies. Just a project timeline for you all. Again, this project was authorized back in 2022. We started looking at we started working with the Planning Commission Policy Plan Committee. So they established a committee specifically to look at this. So there's individual planning commissioners assigned to different elements and assigned to different staffs. They're the planning commission liaisons that are working with county staff on this project. We identified those phase one topics. We began some internal outreach, and then one thing which I'll get into with the update tonight on the introduction is we did an internal policy audit, really mostly looking at the comprehensive plan and also looking at this countywide strategic plan. And then from January to April of 2024, we continued our research. Our outreach plan has been finalized, signed off by the Planning Commission Policy Plan Committee. And then we started sharing this information and getting feedback from the Board of Supervisors, as well as some of the BACs around the county. And then we also began our initial informational outreach phase. And we're kind of here now, sort of beginning in the fall, beginning of winter. So we're beginning our focus topic outreach now. So we've already had some meetings on that. So there's different meetings for different topics for these different elements that we're updating individually. We met with the Planning Commission Policy Plan Committee about a week ago and got feedback from them. And we're continuing staff research now. And then we will have towards next year, we'll continue more community check-ins and feedback. We'll draft a report for plan guidance. We'll publish that report, and we will continuing outreach and working with the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission in their committee meetings. And then the final phase will be working actually on policy plan refinement, so doing review on that. We will also start to work on or publish the staff reports for the different elements for these plans and move into hopefully the approval process. And then after all that, we'll begin phase 2 of the updates. So to talk about the introduction, I have been working very closely with what we call it the topics leads for each element. And so we have an internal staff committee that works with these different topic leads. And then we actually have a subcommittee that was set up to take a look at the introduction chapter and try to think about what really needs to be updated, what are the priorities of it to focus on now. One of those things we got out of those meetings was to really focus on the goals and a land use vision for the actual policy plan to update those goals. And so that's something we are really, that's going to be the main thing we'll talk about tonight. And then we're also looking at the history. So there's a history section in the introduction chapter, and it talks really about sort of land use planning history across the county. So we know we want to update that, and we want to bring it into the last couple of decades, modernize it, and really link a lot of the goals that we'll talk about tonight to that history. So why are some of these big topics that we're focusing on, some of the big priorities of the county, why are those important? How is the history of land use planning in the county kind of created, you could call them issues, for us to really focus in on? And so some of those things that we know are kind of new topics. Is equity is a new one that we'll really focus on, but there's other topics that are not new topics, but maybe some of the dynamics of them have changed over the years, like housing and transportation and the environment. There's also another section that we're talking a lot about and working on is the implementation of the comprehensive plan, plan monitoring, and citizen participation. So that's another section in the introduction that will also be updated. And getting into the land use vision and goals, just talk about the existing goals that are in the comprehensive plan. They were identified initially in 1973. The Board of Supervisors adopted 16 interim policies that were then put into the 1975 comprehensive plan. And then in 1988, the Board of Supervisors wanted to revisit these goals, and they set up a goals commission, which ultimately recommended 18 goals, and then ultimately 20 goals were adopted. I think what's interesting, what's said in the introduction chapter is, this is taken straight out of the introduction chapter, that the goals are comprehensive, encompassing every aspect of Fairfax County government, not limited to merely the planning function. Implementing some aspects of the goals is beyond the legislative mandate of the Planning Commission and the purview of the comprehensive plan. However, because the planning function is so far-reaching, it is critical to use these goals as the basis of forming countywide planning policy. Therefore, the goals for Fairfax County have provided the strategic focus for the objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. I think this is important because at this time, there wasn't a strategic plan for the county. We now, the county has adopted a strategic plan, and so we feel like this is a good time to kind of focus more in on land use policy and goals. And so that's one thing I'll talk a little bit about when we talk about the strategic plan here in just a bit. So the existing goals, they're up on the screen here. There's 20 of them. Most of them are still relevant. There's still a lot of good information in these goals, still a lot of good direction in these goals for us to follow when we're reviewing projects in the county and when we're planning different land use scenarios across the different areas of the county. But we do have a strategic plan now to kind of cross-reference, and a lot has changed in the county since these goals were adopted and ultimately in 1988. There's been a lot of population growth, different development patterns, demographic changes, an evolving economy, and then also the strategies and how land use planning occurs has shifted, so best practices as well. So it's a good time to take a look at the goals again. So the countywide strategic plan, again, was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 2021. The strategic plan tells us that the plan is to be used as a framework to align and integrate related countywide plans. And so the comprehensive plan is one of those that we're looking to align with the strategic plan. And within the countywide strategic plan, there are 10 community outcome areas. And these are really important because they identify the top really priorities of issues to address within the county. And so there was a lot of extensive outreach that occurred with strategic plan to develop these goals. And so what we've kind of done initially is kind of audited the comprehensive plan to look at these goals with the existing goals and kind of decide what we need to update. So this chart right here shows kind of a summary of the alignment of the two plans. And so you see on the x-axis, you have the comprehensive plan goals, all 20 of those, cross-referenced to the 10 county community outcome areas of the strategic plan. And so we've kind of put areas in there where the existing goals align with those strategic plan goals. I just want to go over a little bit of the staff process to get where we're at with these updated goals. We have gone through a lot of work with our introduction subcommittee. So we've had a series of meetings to discuss strategy, how we're going to update those. We've also been checking in. So each, like I said earlier, the Planning Commission has representatives for each of these elements. And so we've been checking in with those planning commissioners. We did work on phase 1 of outreach this late spring, this past summer. And those were 4 in-person meetings and 2 virtual meetings. And there we discussed some of the strategy about updating the introduction chapter, but introducing the other elements to the community. And we've also taken these edits, these revisions, and the drafted goals and land use visions through the overall policy plan topic leads committee, and they have been reviewed through a series of internal management as well. And then we have met with the Planning Commission Policy Plan Committee just a little over, I guess that was 2 weeks ago now. And now we're in this new phase of community outreach for it. So I want to go over, so through all that review that we've done, all the edits, all the direction that we've been given through working with different agencies and the Planning Commission and other stakeholders, there were some different themes that emerged through that process. Obviously, the first one, everyone was in agreement that, we needed to align whatever the update was with the strategic plan. We also do not currently have a land use vision statement for the comprehensive plan. And so we decided it would be good to develop a land use vision statement, which I'll share with you soon after this slide. And then we also wanted to make sure that the goals are very visionary. They set a very high level of expectation of what we want the county to be in the future. And then we did want to establish an overarching land use goal as the kind of the first goal. And then we knew that we had some new topics that were in the strategic plan, but not as much in the comprehensive plan currently. And so some of those topics are equity, and another one is healthy communities. And so incorporating those into the comprehensive plan is an important priority for this update. We also had a lot of conversations about how the transportation goals should be more focused on urban design concepts such as streetscape and multimodal design. And last but not least is that we wanted to recognize and establish a tone that all the goals are interrelated and should not be considered outside the context of the other goals. And so this works both with the goals, but it also works with the different elements of the comprehensive plan. They all kind of come together to provide the guidance that we need for land use across the county. So with that, this is the vision statement that we've developed. We shared it with the Planning Commission, Policy Plan Committee, got some feedback on it along with the goals, but I'll read it out loud. The county will plan for growth by providing diverse housing options, ample employment opportunities, and essential services for all people. Healthy environments and communities will be designed to be safe, walkable, and well connected by multimodal transportation options and include vibrant cultural and recreational spaces that ensure a high quality of life for everyone. And again, one of the things we tried to do with this vision statement is make sure that we are capturing, reflecting really something that's in those 10 community outcome areas. So each individual one is really captured within the land use vision statement. And looking at the new goals that are again drafted, these are goals that we've gone through a lot of review internally. We've gone through a review with the Planning Commission, and they gave us some comments that we're working on now. But to kind of go over these, we kind of landed on 8 goals, and again, they're drafted, so we are receiving feedback on the vision and the land use goals from the community now. And really the 8 goals, just to kind of summarize, is one is the first is the land use, overall land use goal. We have an equitable goal as well. We have access to affordable housing goal. We have a healthy communities goal. We have access to arts, culture, recreation, and lifelong learning. We also have a goal for environmental sustainability. enhanced plan for economic opportunity and resiliency, and to promote safe, walkable, beautiful and walkable urban design. And so that's a transportation goal as well. And with that, I'm going to kind of point out some of the, I have the narrative for all these goals, and I'm not going to read every single one of these out loud, but I would say we do have these on our website, so you all can take a look at them and give feedback to us as well. But I did want to point out some of the newer goals that we're looking at. I mean, one thing is we do have this land use goal. I think one thing we want to do with the introduction chapter is make the introduction more for the entire comprehensive plan and not just for the policy plan. So the idea of connecting the policy plan through the county's concept for future development and the area plans is a major focus. And so you see some of that language reflected a bit here in the drafted land use goal. And then again, a very important goal and something that's reflected in the One Fairfax policy and is a big part of the countywide strategic plan is advancing equity throughout the county. And so there is a big opportunity to advance equity through equitable development and land use planning. And so we do have one goal that strategizes a way to do that. And so we will continue to work on the equity chapter as well in the introduction, or input, or actually include equity in the introduction chapter. And so there'll be sort of more parameters, more framework around this, but this is the high level goal that we have for equity. And then a housing goal, again, not a new goal. Housing has always been a big priority in the county. But this one in particular, just focusing as much development housing as we can, particularly in the growth areas of the county. And that's one of the focuses that we have here. And then again, like I mentioned, healthy communities goals is another one that's not really reflected in the current comprehensive plan and something that we are trying to incorporate across the different elements of the plan. And so likely what you'll see is both with equity and with healthy communities, you'll see those really develop throughout the different elements of the plan, incorporated as part of the overall other elements, objectives, and policies. And this goal here, the arts, culture, recreation, lifelong learning, this is it's kind of a combination of some goals that we currently have, but it's still pretty much in line with what we have now currently in the plan. And I would say when looking at the environmental goal, one thing we really focused on a lot, and a lot has changed in the last couple of decades in terms of the environment, we really focused on addressing climate change and some other environmental, high-level environmental goals here. And the economic goal, we are going to be sharing this with our Department of Economic Initiatives as well. So they're going to be taking a look at this and reviewing it to make sure that our comprehensive plan strategy aligns with their strategies as well. But still pretty similar to, I would say, the goals that we currently have with regards to economic development. And then this goal is somewhat new. We have a transportation goal, but like I said earlier in the presentation, this goal really focuses more on urban design. It focuses on integrating public facilities, utilities, open spaces, arts, recreation, all into the transportation network. And so it really focuses on multimodal options of transportation. Obviously, automobiles are very important, and that is still part of the focus of this, but we're just trying to really highlight more walkability and more of an urban design focus in transportation. With that, I will open it up for now, questions and discussion. I have a couple more slides I can share with you all about more information after this, but I'd like to see if you all have any feedback initially on the goals and the introduction chapter that I went through.
Could you go back to your slide that you had on the environment just a couple slides ago?
Sure. Let me pull that up and share my screen again.
The reason I ask is because I'm trying to reconcile all these different pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And you indicated how there's been a lot of update here, and I was just trying to get a sense for what that is. One of the things that's reflected in here is the interest in healthy communities, but it's not clear what you mean by sustainability. And if you look at the slide that you have with the policy plan amendment draft goals, you have a bullet. It's number 6, I think. Plan for environmental sustainability enhanced. And when I think about sustainability, that basically tells me you want to maintain what you have. But if you simply maintain what you have, that may not be protective of people in terms of cleaning up contamination. You have PFAS, you have lead, you have air quality issues, and so those might it that those could be read to imply that those are being set aside, and that may not be what you mean.
Okay.
And then the other thing is when I think about, I like the fact that the strategic plan has a goal of energy. I'm sorry, environment and energy, because I think those two pair well. But then the question is, when you look at how they end up playing out in objectives, um, it seems that they should reflect the major efforts of the county. And to me, the major efforts of the county right now, um, at least for climate, revolve around CCAP and Resilient Fairfax. And the way that they're structured, it seems like, based on what I've heard, it it's not clear that they've been accommodated, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's because you have the things that have been established and what's there, and then you're talking about making some shifts, and it's not clear to me what kinds of shifts you're thinking about, and I think that's the real meat of the whole discussion that we need to undertake in undertaking this review. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, to me, I think some of those things are going to be looked at through the environmental element itself. Again, the goals that we have here, and I appreciate your comment about sustainability, and I'll certainly take that back to our folks internally. Particularly, we did rely on our representatives who are working on the environmental element to help shape this this goal itself. But I do think some of the more specific things, kind of what you're talking about, the CCAP and Resilient Fairfax, that those will be incorporated into the environmental element as best as possible.
And just out of curiosity, I take it that you're starting out with what we have right now in terms of the current plan, and you're thinking about um, augmenting it with new information generally, but probably not removing what we already have. Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, so I would say we are looking at a revision to the policy plan, right? And the different elements that we're looking at, and part of that is the introduction chapter. And so those revisions are updating to modernize it for one. Taking and looking at as staff, and we got feedback from other agencies and working with the planning commission too, is kind of doing an audit of the comprehensive plan and looking at the objectives and the policies within the different elements and seeing what is working and what's not working. And so any of those kind of things where we might see something, that a policy that we're not implementing well, how can we improve that policy? Do we need to take it out? Do we need to add a different policy? So all of that. So there is things that we're looking at adding and revising. It's a revision. It's not a wholesale, start brand new, but there's a lot. I mean, for the most part, our policy plan works pretty well today. The sections that I use most frequently, I recently worked on an update to the public facilities element, and we did update a decent amount of policies. And a lot of those were based on trends that were occurring in the county, and they were also based on the strategic plan that had been adopted before the public facility plan went in. And so, um, a lot of the revisions, I would say, are largely based on other county documents like strategic plan, and also, what is and what isn't working for our current policies, and what we can add to make the comprehensive plan work better. I mean, largely we use the comprehensive plan to review different area plan amendments that we're working on that are larger area plan amendments across the county. Sometimes we're working on site-specific plan amendments. Sometimes we're using the plan through rezonings, special exceptions, and things like that. So we're taking a look at how we are reviewing sort of all those different types of reviews that we go through and how the comprehensive plan works today.
Thank you. You mentioned how you're looking at how things are working or maybe not working.
Mm-hmm.
Have you documented that somewhere? I ask because it would help to build an understanding of the work that you've undertaken.
Yeah, I certainly did. As part of the staff report, I know that will be included for sure, but that's kind of a long ways off. Obviously we need to justify the changes that are being made. And so when I did the public facilities element, we did that. Corrine may be able to jump in here as well and answer that question because she's kind of in charge of managing this whole plan, which is quite an undertaking. And I know she's been collecting feedback and comments from all the different agencies on this audit that we've been doing of the comprehensive plan. And so some of that is giving us a lot of direction and the things that we need to look at, and each element's very different to the level of how much that's going to be. So I don't know, Corrine, if you want to add to that.
No, I think you hit it right on the head. Also, we are working on white papers for some of the other elements. The introduction is a little bit different in that we're not producing any white papers for this, but some of that, what's working well and what isn't, would be covered in those. But that's all I had to add.
So we won't. When would we see anything on that? Will it not be until the staff report?
So the white papers are slated to be released by the end of this year, as we've stated in other meetings, and the staff report would be prior to public hearings, so next year.
Oh, I was thinking about what's working, what's not working. So the white papers would have, I would think, some of it, but there's some things that I would imagine you're thinking may or may not be working that would probably be outside the scope of the white papers. Or is my assumption incorrect?
And for the stuff that's outside of the scope of the white papers, that would be covered in the staff report.
Okay,
As
so we
Salem
wouldn't see
stated.
that. We wouldn't see that for months.
I think you'll probably, one thing you may hear as we do these community meetings as well is, like I'm just looking back to when I was working on the public facilities element. A lot of what I shared in those community meetings as we were going through the process was, we right now, like for example, we had one. This is probably easier to just give examples. Really, we had one goal that we knew was an important goal because we didn't have the policy in that plan, in the public facility plan, to really I guess strategize for this goal, which was adding a lot of strength to co-locating facilities across the county. And so we got a lot of feedback from the community, but we knew through the policies that we currently had, we didn't have really the types of policies that we needed. And so as I was going through the community meetings, we talked a lot about what co-location means, the types of co-location policy we were looking at. And so I suspect you'll hear similar things as the different elements are being updated about the types of things that that particular staff is kind of looking at, along with planning commission comments about what things may not be working as well, what policy we need to really focus on. So I suspect some of that's going to be shared in these individual community meetings for the different elements. Kind of like I'm talking about tonight with the introduction chapter. We know we have one big one, which is equity. We don't really have anything in the plan currently on that, and so we know that's something that isn't working, right? And so that's something we're looking at adding to the plan, and we'll be incorporating that across different elements. But it'll also have a narrative based around equity in the introduction. And so that's, I guess, one example too, currently in this introduction chapter, where we know we don't have the policies we need, and we know we need to create new policies around that.
Thank you. I really appreciate your explanation. You really did an excellent job in explaining your thinking, and I think that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'm glad I could help.
Yes. My interest is in food supply.
Okay.
We saw in the pandemic that our supply chains are very fragile. And it's clear to me that climate change is starting to put pressure on global food chains. One response to that would be to start looking at relocalizing our food supply, small scale agriculture, community gardens. And so I'm really just speaking, I'm just getting started with this. So I'm trying to identify policies that might restrict such development, urban agriculture, hydroponics, people who might want to have a community garden and sell their produce to the neighbors. I think that's restricted at this point. So I'm just here trying to figure out, I guess mostly in the land use part of it, where we would start to make those changes that might be necessary.
And I can start with this one. Sorry, Salem. This came up with our health team, actually. Sure. And I apologize. My cat has decided that now is when he wants to be on the table. So if my computer is moving, it's from him. But this came up with our health team, and they're looking at healthy communities and the buckets that make those. And so food systems is something that came up through that. And they just had their last meeting on Monday, but those recordings will be available. But I can relay that information to our health team and let them know that you're interested in that, and see where they are with it to get in contact with you about your specific questions, because I know this has come up, and we've talked to our land use team too about using some of these ideas to help with the design of places. And sorry, Salem, I interrupted you, so I'll turn it back over.
I was pretty much going to say the same thing. Anna Ricklin is one of the representatives for, she really is the one that directs health and all policies across the county. And so she's been tasked as the healthy communities liaison for the county, and updating, we're really creating a new chapter for that. And so we've been meeting and talking to her about that chapter update. And I know food systems is very important to the goals, her goals and the goals of healthy communities. And also I know she's talked a lot about food deserts, localizing food and trying to have more healthy food options, particularly available throughout the county and closer to where people live. And so Corinne could, if you want to give us your information, we could pass it along to Anna. She could reach out to you. It sounds like that's a very specific interest you have, and it's something they're looking at. And so I'm sure Anna would be happy to talk to you more about that and just get your input on it and kind of what you know about it as well, to hopefully help guide some policy there.
Thank you. I've been attending meetings of the Food Council and a couple of urban agriculture working groups. So this is on, not just on my mind, but a lot of people are thinking about it. And I didn't see in your slides much reference to that sort of thing. So I just thought I'd put it on your radar, and I'd be happy to talk with anybody about it.
Yeah, so Corinne, if you can just maybe get her contact information and pass it along to Anna, that would be great. Thank you.
Is there a chat that?
Yes, there is a chat. If you want to just drop your email address there, I can copy and paste it over.
Barbara, I did sit in on the Monday meeting, and I did hear Anna speak, and she was attentive to these kinds of issues. She was absolutely great. I was thoroughly impressed with her, and I told her so.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I think this type of thing too, it's so new. Well, healthy communities concept isn't really new, but I think it's a hard one to incorporate into land use planning, but it's an important one. And so I think it's something that Anna can really speak to in particular, because she's really been like a driving force. But I think it's the kind of thing that we need more advocates across the country, or I mean the county, to support along. And I think good opportunity is within this policy plan to do that. So definitely appreciate your feedback on that.
Excellent. Yeah, when I came in 1953 to Fairfax County, it was largely agricultural. It's been.
Yeah, I believe it.
I don't think we'll ever get back to that level, but.
Yeah, I moved up here from Culpeper County, and I suspect one day it'll probably, it's becoming a little bit more like a bedroom community to DC, but probably one day it'll be like that too.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Sure. Any more questions about the introduction or the goals or the land use vision? I just want to share one more slide for y'all so you have this information. You probably already have it, but if you don't, here it is. I'm going to share my screen one more time. So again, this is the project website. You can look at the land use vision, the goals there. If you want to, you can provide comments after this meeting to us, of course, after you've had a chance to look at it. And all the existing policy plans online too for you to look at. And we do have this email address as well that you can provide comments to us as we go through the whole update. So this is a pretty long process. We're looking at working on this through a good amount of next year as well. So we'll be taking feedback through a lot of this planning process. So with that, if you have any final questions or thoughts, be happy to answer them. Nothing else. Corrine, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to thank you both for taking time out of your evening to join us and chat with us about this. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Great.
Same. Appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk soon. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Have a good
Take
night.
care.
Good night. Bye.